sunny, the algae grow, the windows get darker, which is cool, but hardly worth the point. If it weren't for the fact that every evening you harvest about a third of the algae that's present in the windows, you put them in a tank where they rot, they create biogas. With the biogas you run an engine that gives you heat and that gives you electricity for about half of the utility bill. Not bad, you know. And here's the one that, in a way, I like even more so. The poo house, if you prefer. A big development in Jenfelder, you know, for almost 750 people. That's a lot of units. That's a lot of people going to the washroom. They didn't start that scale first. There's already development like that. That's about 30 years old in another town nearby in Germany, in Lübeck. But the principle is very simple. Just when you enter the washroom, it looks like any regular washroom, and you flush. And in Germany, a lot of the apartment buildings kind of look a bit institutional for their washroom. All the plumbing is inside the wall. But this one, when you flush, it's as if it's a bit quieter. I had a chance to go in one of those buildings and try it out for myself. It's a bit quieter than an airplane, but it's the same approach. You use vacuum to suck up your daily creations. And just like the algae in the previous, in the previous building, all that goes to a central building, a unit center, a separate building altogether because that's quite large. And it is left to rot, again, producing biogas again. Again, we're not there yet because so much more of that complex needs to be built. It's an active construction site right now. But again, the idea, the plan is by just producing biogas out of human waste, we can get about half of the energy and heating bill. Okay? And this is the furthest from the hair shirt, oh, if you're going to save the environment, we mustn't do this, we mustn't do that. That's the electrical bill that comes from large screen TVs, computers, and that kind of stuff. I'm not saying this is necessarily the way to go either, but this shows what is possible in that respect. You put all this together. This was another thing that was put together for the IBA, for the exhibit. It was in a neighborhood that was quite run down, and part of the reason it was run down was there's a lot of these sort of things. This is a giant World War II bunker that nobody could tear down without damaging the rest of the neighborhood, but it was there, left there as a blight, as a big sign of, we don't care about you. Okay? And then finally the idea was, we have this IBA, this will be the excuse to make that neighborhood way better, and this is what happened. This is the same bunker. It's about 8 stories tall. It's got solar collector, thermal on top. It's got photovoltaic, or is it the other way around? Photovoltaic. It produces hot water as well as electricity. It has a cogen system inside. That is, it takes biogas. It produces heat and electricity because a lot of the neighborhood was refit with district heating. You can do that after the fact. The biogas comes from the excess from the wastewater treatment plant, so it's kind of like a giant complex in that respect. It's the beauty of it is looking at the whole system. How do all the parts fit? So for that neighborhood, it's already a great lesson. Of course, you get the great amenity. There's a super pub there. If ever you go to Hamburg, best view of the city is right there. And you can do that at the scale of the whole city. Okay. If you're a nerd, this is gravy. If you're not, this is scary, obviously, and I'm not going to explain it. Just to say that if you look at all the different possibilities of making heat and electricity, and all the demands, as well as production of heat and electricity, and all the various storage, you can put all that in a giant computer and start controlling the system as if the city was a single organism. Looking for, we can save energy here, this has a peak demand there, and you just match and keep going. This is where we need to get to eventually. That really is what makes a place works. Here are the results. They're pretty simple. When Germany started on that route, on the Energiewende, as they call it, the energy turning point, everybody says it's not going to work. Everybody says you need to have a lot of energy to run an economy. Well, yeah, they do. And what they've done is, if you look at renewables, with that solar and wind is the highest single source of energy. They've also committed to eliminate nuclear, and that will happen this decade, as well as eliminating coal by, I believe, 38. They're confident enough that just renewable will do the bill. In this respect, in Canada, we're a bit lazy. We have legacy large hydropower. We're not doing a lot else. And Germany is really, there's no big hydropower, no big dams. It's always been coal, just like Poland. But Poland has been stubbornly saying, we're a coal nation. Germany has said there's got to be a better way. And they've proven it. And giving the lie to people that say the economy can't grow without more carbon emissions. The exact opposite has happened. We've seen it first possibly in Germany, but now it's true of most industrialized economy, and Germany is sure industrialized. Why Germany? A thing that I really like about it, it was one smart political decision once. Germany had, just before 2000, a government that was the equivalent of what we call a minority government. It was an alliance with the Greens, and the Greens said you need to throw a few things our way. And that was the idea of subsidizing what at the time was a really expensive, unproven system, namely solar panels, windmills. Windmills, they could look at Denmark. They were already starting. But the idea was that, okay, let's not government decide these are the right kind of solar panels or whatever. Let's just create a market so that people want to buy, they know exactly what they're getting into, and then we'll see who ends up producing more of what. So if you decided to put a solar panel on your house, you knew how much the hydro, so to speak, the electrical company was going to pay you for it, how long they were going to pay you for it, and the fact that you had grid priority. That's important, particularly if you're a larger outfit, like a farmer's cooperative. You can put your money together, you build 4 windmills. Or what if the company decides to turn around and say, we don't need your power? No, you have priority. Sorry guys, you have to shut down your nuclear power plants because it's very windy today. So that was the key piece, the certainty to the market. If it's clean electricity, it goes first. So that was a large part, and it also got a lot of buy-in from the community. When you arrive, you're a large company and you say, we're putting a big wind farm here, okay, I hope you guys don't mind. Most of the time here, the locals, yeah, indeed do mind. They weren't consulted and so on. In Germany, it's more, oh, we're putting the conditions there. If you want to have a wind farm, go ahead. We'll make it work for you, but we're never going to say it has to go here, we're imposing it there. So quite a different approach. So they created a lot of buy-in. So even when new governments came in and said, ooh, not sure about this program, we want to cut back on this, cut back on that, there's such a large community, both workers, people that put up windmills, that put up solar power, that work for the grid, and homeowners, farmers, small corporations and whatnot, who said there's no way you're touching that. This is too precious. Part of the reason why this might have happened is Germany is a wonderful education system, way more money invested into R&D of different kinds, some directly governmental, some university, some with a bunch of private institutes, but that is one place where, if we're going to copy anything from Germany, this is where we got to go. We used to have, say, a BC Research, equivalent of one of those institutes. We let it fall for lack of contracts, for lack of support. It's exactly the wrong thing to do. We have to invest more. And eventually, out of those smart people somewhere studying all the strangest things, trickles out something that, oh, this is so cool. We can make it happen. So this is basically it as far as my presentation. In Germany are lessons that we in Canada, we in BC, in the Lower Mainland, can copy, can adopt ways of running our economy that is far more efficient, that requires far less energy, that produces, which is the most important thing, much, much less greenhouse gases. And if we're smart enough, we can also address the issues such as potential future flooding that are threatening us right now, that are causing us to honestly look a bit the other way. Like we're talking about the crescent beaches of this area where people said, over my dead body. Well, yeah, you don't want things to change, but it's not the government forcing you to change. Just Mother Nature is going to flood you. And crescent beaches, unfortunately, but even in longer term, larger places like Richmond, for instance, we have to come up with solutions. Living with water might be a good approach for that. The technology does exist. It's just a matter of implementing it and implementing it fast. And for that, you just need smart governance and good R&D, good research. And that is basically, and I'm sorry I had to rush through it, but this is my talk. These are my reasons why I see the future with optimism. I'm cautious. Thank you very much. And of course,